Good morning, my outstanding friends. Houston, we got an issue. We got a problem. They're trying to explain this meteorite, asteroid, whatever you want to call it. It's out in space. Well, let's see what other things in space are, and then maybe we can determine what that might possibly be. All right, I'm just going to buzz through everything quick. This is the new one that they're stunned about, that they found, this oddball-looking comet or asteroid. And I think it's something similar to this right here, and that is muscle, and that's the bone with tendon. Exact same thing. This, as far as I'm concerned, there's no question what that is. It's a hip joint. And they break off like this, or right here, or in this case, it broke off right out here. Snapped right across. And this also has a little abrupt transition. You can see them. They all have that. You see it? This is the actual hip joint. And I showed you the other one, this one here. This is it. It is what it is, and that's it. Now, what is it doing? It's gassing off. Well, why was it gassing off like this? The sun's hitting it exactly in the right plane to go into the blood vessels and cook the blood. And it's squirting out just like barbecue gases from out of the little tiny blood vessels. This is the anchor, and these little pock marks here, they're not gassing off because those are there. Those are anchors. They're in there to anchor this thing so that it's the ball, I believe, goes inside this socket, and that's an anchor. All right, now, that's the way I'm looking at this. Now, this is looking at the back here. This is some kind of a muscle bundle, or it could be tendon. I don't think so. This is tendon. This would have gone up to the muscle. Now the other one has the stalk, and then it has not tendon primarily. It's got a stalk of tendon, and then the muscle. Basically the same thing though. This is Comet 67P. This goes back to 2015. And they landed the Philae lander right down on here. It was smaller than one of these little, maybe about the size of one of these little dots down here. And it took samples of this, and it was all biological, because it is. It's a hip joint, and it's gassing off the same gases that we would gas off. Here it is, right here. These are the ones they got. And here's Mimas, the moon. That's a tendon ball. And they're going out to these Trojan asteroids, which is going to be Psyche and so forth. I think I showed you that, Psyche. They went to Bennu, came back with it, and they can't accept what they found. This is all biology. I showed you that. This is all biology. These are sarcomeres. These are the phosphate layers, and basically a Slurpee in between. These are the bundles of muscle. It's from a heart. And it is quite clearly and obviously a heart. Here it is right here. And these are, I showed you, these are the valves. There's one there. There's one over here. And there's the big one over here. And that one there pumps blood this way and goes back, clamps off. And they went down deep inside there and grabbed a chunk of muscle, brought it back to Earth. And they just can't deal with the actuality. They found all of the DNA and RNA and uracil and 16,000 biological chemicals in here. You can see the biology. There's zero question about this. And it's too much for a PhD to accept. I call it PhDolia, where they can't accept it. It's undeniable. It's absolutely undeniable. Not only that, biology saturates the universe that I know of. This is up on Mars too. That's on Mars. This is connective tissue. And this is all the dust that dusted out of this connective tissue, which is sarcomeres. These are the blocks of sarcomeres. They say it's over millions of years this happened. No, not at all. I think I showed you all this stuff before, but I can't show you too many times because it's just obvious. All right, now, I showed you the vagina. And the birth of a planet, and Venus spins backwards, and that is, I can account for that too in physics. If it popped out of the red spot, it would pop out and start spinning this way. The red spot is spinning, Jupiter is spinning this direction. if Venus came out, it would start rolling backwards because it would basically roll out. Jupiter would keep going, Venus would roll out and take off and continue to roll backwards, which it's still doing today. It's a reverse orbiter, a reverse spinner. Okay, my friends, another shocker du jour. If you've been following me at all, you know that I have mentioned over and over about Bennu, this asteroid that's in space. They went out and put a lander on there that went down and grabbed a chunk of this, brought it back to Earth, and this is what that chunk is right here. And they're examining it, and they're finding all the building blocks of life. Okay, I got pulled away. I think I was in the midst of showing this picture here that shows these tiny fibers inside this tiny little block. So there's a bazillion of these inside of every fiber. Now, if you cut across this way, you would see a whole bunch of little fibery looking things coming out at you. And that's what we see in this picture here. You see it right here? That's what you would see with the heart muscles bundles. But inside of the bundles, you would see these sarcomeres. And layered under and on top of the sarcomeres would be these phosphates, which are the slurpy sort of stuff that moves around on. But this would be cut on the end like this, and these blocks would be running through here. This is another one of those step downs. This one here showing the white means there's phosphates. And then they move down to a little bitty piece here, down to here, and then way down to the blocks. All right, now those are muscle sarcomeres. These are the layers in between, and these are the bundles. Pretty obvious. Now this is a heart attack victim here, and there's the sarcomeres, and there's the layers in between, the phosphates. So that's the heart attack victim. This is the same stuff as this is the anatomical showing. This is the same as that with the cross sections and all that stuff. There's no difference here. Now, where did this come from? Well, it came from a space mission right from there. They went down in here, and they went in, and they didn't realize they were going to go deep. They thought they were going to grab one of these little boulders. That's what they're hoping for, to get a chunk. Because they're thinking, what the hell are these boulders doing? How did all those boulders get on there? Well, I know how they got on, and you will in a minute too. But these round, you see these features here? That round feature, that big one? You see this one here? Follow this very carefully. You see that coming around? You see this one coming around? You see that one coming around? Those are valves. That's a heart, and they grabbed a chunk of heart sarcomeres and came back to Earth with it. Okay, these are muscle sarcomeres. And they have this look to them. They have a break here and a break here, and they come together like this when they contract. And when they relax, they look like that. And they break in these blocks. And we see these everywhere. All right, this is on Mars. Those are sarcomeres. Those are muscle sarcomeres. They say that happened over millions of years, erosion. No, it has the red stuff in between the connective tissue, and that is just eroded away. And this is Mars because there is no runoff of water here. It's just dust. And Mars has no magnetic field left, and I just discovered why. I've been looking at this for a long time between the scar on Mars and the scar on Venus, and it's been driving me sort of crazy. But now I know why those two scars exist the way they do exist, and I will explain it to you somewhere in this video, so stay tuned if you want to hear that. These are sarcomeres. It's muscle. All right, we're looking at heart muscle. Now, if you're squeamish, look away because you're going to see a heart. It looks like a real heart. I don't think it is, although I don't know how they did it, but I'm going to show you, so be careful. This is the muscle we've been looking at. or we will be looking at, in these little blocks. And they have a separation in between them. I can't remember the name of it, but it is where the phosphate is. Now, this is what happens in a heart. Get ready. Turn away if you're squeamish. Boom. You see these valves? These are what we're going to be seeing in the heart. And it pumps out here. Pumps out, and they can only go one way. They're valves. If the blood tries to go back that way, it can't. It can come in, but it can't go back. That can go back, but it can't come in, that type of thing. And they have very, very heavy-duty ventricle walls. And this does this your entire life. I mean, continuously, or that's the end of your life. These are the heartstrings. There's a tendon name they call them, but it doesn't matter. And this is where all the plumbing is, right up at the top. That literally falls off. Literally, all of that stuff just falls right off. And you end up seeing the three valves, and it falls off just because there's a blue and a red layer there. That means there's two different types of blood, and they push each other away, and they just snap right off, and all you see is the valves. Okay, these are the heart sarcomeres that we're talking about, that they came back from Bennu with, these little blocks, and in between each one is this layer of, I forget what they call it, but we'll look into it a little deeper in a second. This is from Physiopedia. Now, if you got issues with bodily things, be careful, because this is going to be inside the heart, actually seeing the valves. And that's why I want to show you this. It's very important. All right, so it's up to you if you want to watch or not, but it's graphic. Boom. These are the heart valve, the ventricle walls. Very tough. Boom, boom, boom. When it does, the blood only come through this way and only go out that way. And this one, one or the other, whatever. But these are valves. You see how it shuts off? And this one only can come through this way, and it tries to go back out, and it clamps it off. Now, all of the plumbing, and I say plumbing, I mean the tubing, is just laying on the top here. You see it? And you end up with, this is really the heart right here. And these are like things that go to tubes that run out through your heart to pump the blood here and there into your lungs and so forth. Now, this is a very, very heavy, dense ventricle wall. And these are the three major heart valves. And again, this just falls right off. And it falls off because there's two types of blood there. There's the red, and then there's the blue in the body. It's in the mudfossils, it's red and black, but they separate. It's called iron banding. They have a band between them, and they oppose each other. And the top just falls right off, and you see these three valves. Okay, my friends, this is one of those step-down pictures. You got the heart, and you got this little block represents this block. This little block on one single fiber represents this little block. So inside this block, this little block, there's a whole batch of these little fibers, and each one of them has its own blockiness to it. And you see how it's lighter colored here and darker in the center and lighter colored, and then there's a separation line, and it's very well patterned like this. However, inside these things do weave back and forth. They're not like straight lines. So what would that mean? If we cut this across right here, what would we see? We see a bunch of little, they wouldn't be in patterns. In other words, you'd see a little coming here and there and all over the place. And that's exactly what we do see in this next shot. All right, these are the sarcomeres, and there's layers of phosphates that layer on top and so forth. And then there's a bunch of little mitochondria here and there. There's a bunch of chemistry going on, but primarily you have these blocks. Of course, they need mitochondria for energy, and they need to be able to slide, basically twist a little bit like this. Not a lot. They don't go way over here and way over here, but they do move in and out. That's their nature. So they have to be able to slide a little bit. And this slurpy layer does it. There's a name for it, and we'll get into the chemistry deeply in a second. But that's, All right, so we're dealing with heart sarcomeres, and there's something called an endomysium. And that is this right here, the deepest and smallest component of muscle connective tissue. It's a thin layer. That's that layer we were looking at, the endomysium. And it gives it a good chemical environment so that they can do what they have to do. Plus, it gives a place for the mitochondria and so forth. Now, does the endomysium contain phosphates? Yes. Endomysium does contain phosphate groups, specifically as part of the extracellular fluid and the nutrients it provides to the muscle fibers. Phosphate is also released during muscle contraction as a byproduct of ATP. This is what they called it, the phosphate surprise, when they found it in that sample that I showed you. NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission made a surprising discovery in samples from Bennu, this asteroid Bennu, the presence of a magnesium-sodium phosphate mineral. It had not been detected during the spacecraft's remote sensing observations. This finding suggests Bennu may have originated from a small ancient ocean world, providing new insights into the early solar system's chemistry and a potential for life-supporting environments beyond Earth. Well, as I have said or will say, that is a heart. That's called a heart from a gigantic creature. That's some clues to the early evolution of the solar system right there. All right, this is from a site called Physiopedia, very helpful about the heart, all about it. And these are the valves that we are seeing in Bennu and Psyche. And here's the muscle that we saw cut across this way, and these are the fibers and the sarcomeres that we saw. And then this is where it breaks right here. And you get to see the three valves. Now, I am going to show you where the heart is actually pumping, and it looks like it's a real heart, so it's a little gross, but you're going to see it. These are the heart strings, and you have three major valves here, and they go in and out, and you actually can see the valve structure on Bennu. You can actually see the valve. Now watch. If you have a queasy stomach, don't watch. All right, don't forget, this is this. Now, when it's pumping and doing its job, what does it look like? It looks like that. You see that? These are the ventricle walls. These are the valves. You see it coming in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. So what happens is the blood is moving through your heart, pumping back and forth. You got red, black, and you got your in and out to your lungs and so forth. Now, you see this piece right here? It's just riding on there. Literally, it's glued. If you saw I'll show you a different picture, and you'll be able to see it. It's just like glued on there. However, there's a separation of irons. There's a black iron and a red iron, a hematite and magnetite. And they get together and they snap apart. This right here is a heart. You see this? It's just the same as that heart right there. Only, of course, it's a Mudfossil. Now, why is it all broken up like this? Why is it all fractured like that? The reason is it's called iron banding. When the black and the red get together, they push apart. And because this died laying like this, all the blood in here, which was 100% blood, because it's a heart, it all laid atop each other. And so they had to separate. Black, then red, then black, then red, then black, then red. And you can see that in here. You just you see the black and the red? The black pushes the red apart. Simple as that. And the black here surrounds the red, which is inside, and here's another layer of black. So it's black, red, black, red, black, red, and that's called iron banding. You just saw the valve. That's it right there. You see these things? Bloop, 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 bloop. That one's the same thing, and this one, the big, huge one, is here. Now, this is Bennu. Psyche is the exact same thing. It's another heart. Now these are actual raw images. Psyche, NASA's snapping hundreds of raw images of Psyche. And you can see it's a heart. Okay, this is Psyche, and they're sending a spaceship out there now, and they're sending back hundreds of raw images from Psyche, which is a heart, same as Bennu. And they say it's metal rich, and that's because it's saturated with blood. You see here, I don't know which one's right. They're showing this could be an artist's rendition, I don't care, it's still a heart, and so is that. Now, if this is the real Psyche, it got too close to a heat source, and it literally smelted it. When you take blood, literally red blood, and you turn it into iron, you smelt it. That's what blood is iron. Iron is blood, basically. Almost 90% of it is iron. Well, probably more than that. And actually, meteorites coming through space still have blood in them. When they cut them open, there is still blood in them. And I can show you that, which I, of course, will. However, it doesn't matter which one is the real Psyche. They're both hearts. Either one. And this is what we're seeing is these valves. And the top pops right off. And it is because of a line right across here pops off. This is showing it's still got the tendon, which is here. I'm intending to go with this one because if you look at it real close, they're showing it actually has tubes coming out of it. There's a tube right there. That's not a crater, and that's a tube coming out too. And this is tendon, and these are the colors of blood, the black, the red, and the yellow. That's exactly what I would expect to see if this was a heart, which it is. And Bennu, I mean, there is no question about Bennu. Here it is right there. And they landed there. They grabbed a chunk of muscle and came back with it. Take your time. Slow down. You move too fast. You got to make this moment last. What are we looking at? This round valve. And you saw the strings coming down and that hole in the middle. And that one goes bloop, blop, bloop, blop. That's the sound they make. And that's just what it is. That's a heart. Now, when they went deep inside, not realizing they were going to penetrate a whole bunch of blood, just nothing more than blood cells. They get inside, they grab a chunk, and they come back. This is nothing more than biological debris. You know, little bits and pieces of fascia and so forth that are laying around here to just... That's what they were looking for, is these boulders. It confused them, and they are confusing to look at. Why would it be there? See here? Boulders and beyond. A multi-scale analysis of Asteroid Bennu. Well, I just showed you what it is. How can we better understand the diversity? Well, talk to Roger. All right, National Science Foundation. We pay for that. This was well over $1 billion. Smithsonian, same thing. And they've had this stuff back here on Earth. It's going towards 2 years now. Well over a year and a half, or a year and a half. Let's go to a year and a half. And it's been here for a year and a half, and they can't accept that that's heart muscle. And they can't accept that these giant things in space are body parts. Comet 67P, I reported to NASA in 2015. I said, that thing is gassing off. You know, it was the Philae lander from the European Space Agency went up there, landed on that. I followed as closely as anybody. But anyway, let's just get off of this case, and then I'll show you about 67P. Don't forget, these are the muscles. These are muscles. These are the bundles, and these are the little muscle fiber sarcomeres. This is not hard to understand. They found 16 of the 20 amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins that make our DNA and RNA and everything in us. They found 16,000 organic chemicals, organic body stuff. They found uracil, which is one of the key components in transferring DNA back and forth from RNA and so forth. They found all the base pairs, or the nucleotides, I think they call them. Anyway, they found everything for life. It's 100% certain it's life, and it is biologically identical anatomically. There is no questions here. There's no big mystery. The mystery is, why can't the human race accept what is here? It's here. Let's deal with it. That's all I'm saying. Now let's take a look at Comet 67P. You want to see something that will knock your socks off? And that's why I started this today, because of this one. They're looking at this saying, whoa, we're going to explain this. They can't explain it, because that is a body part. This has got to be some kind of a bone coming down here, and then it went into some meat, like a chicken wing or something. No, you know what I mean. I believe this is like a bone, and I got one here somewhere. Similar to like that. And the bone comes down, and then bones have meat wrapping around them, and it's something like this. And then this is the bones obviously broken off. And that would have been a chunk of meat attached to right there. It's exactly how that's exactly how they do it. You get a little bit of tendon, and then you get your muscle going off, and this is muscle. And this looks like it might have been where it attached to wherever it was going to, like an elbow or something. I don't know. Now, pretty much everybody's seen iron meteorites, and when they cut them like this, you see all these patterns in here. You say, wow, what is that? Well, that's because there's all kinds of transition metals and metals in your blood, and this was, I believe, was a liver, but I'm not sure. It's certainly 100% organic, and it was saturated with blood. Could be a liver, could be a heart, could be a lung. I don't see the look of a lung, and I honestly don't see the look. It could be a heart. It could be a heart. But anyway, all of these transition metals are in here. That's why you have all these different crystallization patterns. It's called flocculation. And they get together, and then they hit them with some acid or whatever, and the next thing you know, they show up like that. Well, this is red blood, and that's the artery blood, and that's the vein blood. You see it? The black is the vein, and the red is the artery. And you got some other... The edges, you still got some stuff, and this gets cooked coming through space, and it burns it all up and burns off all the impurities, just like they would do if they fired it in a furnace. And believe me, I know about this stuff. My father was he was a big shot in that industry. As a matter of fact, here he is right here. Allegheny Ludlam. Right. Specialized steels. This goes back to the 60s, and earlier than that even. They were making all these really high quality stainless, super metals, stripped steels, all this stuff. That's a 1936 stainless steel Ford. There was only 6 of them made, and that is stainless steel. Elon didn't have the first one. I worked on that car. I put the floorboards in there, and they were floorboards. They were made out of red oak. They used to have floorboards. That's why they call them floorboards. I have meteorites here with blood in them, no question whatsoever. Anyone wants to test them? Very easy. And I have giant human body parts. One right here. That's the tip of a finger. Oh, come on, Roger, that can be the tip of a finger. Yes, it can, because it is. And this side was where the vein side was. It doesn't blow out, because the veins turn black and hard. The red side, the wet side, exploded, because it burnt up coming through space. It got so hot that it just exploded right off. You see this? You see that circle there? You see that circle there? There was another one here. These are where the 3 tendons attach, right there. And all of that anchored right there with all this red blood. And I drilled way down inside there to get some really fresh blood, and I did. And nobody will test these things. Now I have an actual terrestrial fingertip from a big human. It looks like a human to me. And I drill in that, and nobody will test it. Nobody will test these. You see this hook right here? You see that hook? That's the same hook. You see this coming up right here? That's the same thing. Identical. Identical, identical, identical. You see the side? That's where the vein was, and that's where the vein was. You see that right there? That's the vein. Right there, that's the vein. They don't blow out. The red side blows right out. See, it's gone. Totally gone, just like this one. Only this one just ran out. It's itself. This one exploded because it came through space. Now you see this spot right there, that really gnarly looking stuff? It's the same thing here. It's the same thing. These were both from creatures that had fingertips that were much bigger than ours. Now this one didn't come through space, so it still has the fascia on it, which is the skin, basically. They're the same. Identical, no difference whatsoever. And this one's all scarred up and burnt up because it came through space. And then it got really, really hot and that exploded right off. This is one of the tendon anthesis balls up here to hold this thing together so you can move your fingers around. That hole, like I say, I drilled that hole. That hole was not there. And this hole was not there either. I drilled that so I could get deep down in, so it was uncontaminated stuff. And I could take more of these. You could take them all day long. And it's in here. This was wet when it came through space. That's why it exploded out. And I have other ones. I got at least a half a dozen other ones that also have fresh blood in them. Because out in space, I'm sure Bennu still has blood in it. They found clay in Bennu, which is just nothing more than wet blood. Clay is nothing more than eroded flesh. And when it's wet and gooey, it's still got the moisture and it's still got the bodily fluids. Now, I don't know how malleable this stuff is, but they said they found clay, and they found every body part, every body chemistry that there is in the heart, they found. And in the whole human body, because, it's the blood. They should be able to even do a DNA test on this, I would think. I'd be very surprised if they couldn't get DNA out of it. Although they did say they found 16 DNA molecules out of the 20. Anyway, I had DNA tests done on my stuff. And I had CAT scans done on my stuff too. So I just, and I got my own microscope and all that stuff here too. So I could do the same thing they did, only I did a little more advanced than NASA. And I know what I see, and I can accept what I see. I don't hide from what I see. Now Mars is exactly like Earth. I showed you, Okay, my friends, I'm going to sort of wind this down. If you showed this to a butcher, he would know exactly what it is. It's very tough, tendinous, connective tissue area, and it's biology. And this happens to be directly above Petra, because Petra is muscle. These are sarcomeres, just like I showed you in those hearts. The size and the scale of these things cannot be reckoned with. I don't know what to say. People standing there will only come up to about here. This was a big blood vessel, an artery. And these are the muscle sarcomeres. You see the different colors? You see the different layer in between? This was all blood at one time. And inside the treasury, I'll show you in a second, these holes were to let the moisture out. They carved this when this was wet. They did a magnificent job. So this had to be right after the Great Flood, as far as I'm concerned. I can see no other possibility. And here's inside the treasury. This is nothing more than body tissue. And this is blood coming out up here at some point and dried up to some degree. It still looks a little fresh, but it's connective tissue. Now, on a long distance shot, what do we see? Well, we see Petra is there, and these are all muscle sarcomeres. These are all those little blocks. You see them? All the way, all the way, all the way, all the way. And this was, blood ran through all here when this creature was alive. And that fed it. And they carved it. They had a lot of hearts they carved. They did a lot with the red blood because it was nothing more than like just really good putty. And they used the same thing down in Peru and South America. I'm going to show all this stuff over and over and over, which I have been. But I think some people are starting to take account that this is true. It's time to realize what our real, true, ancient past was. Because it could affect our real, true, ancient eternity, as far as I'm concerned. See, this is over at Mars. They have all the same sarcomeres up there too. And this is Mars. This has not been a drop of water on here ever. Mars just dusted off. Devon Island, I know they do experiments out there, but you can't get this. You cannot get this dust effect. These are the muscle sarcomeres. They say it takes millions of years. No, I don't think so. That was like on a weekend that happened. And this is Jupiter, and that's Earth coming out of the red spot. And the red spot, I'm going to tell you right now, I've shown exactly what it is, and it is exactly where babies come from. That's it right there. And that right there is the spurlock. That, my friends, is a female body part. And that's where Venus came from. And what happened? It says in ancient texts, Venus was born from the feared god Jupiter. And it came out and almost hit Earth, caused a great flood. And then here's what it ended up hitting: Mars. That's wider than the United States. It's wider. And I'll show you the point of impact. Venus spins backwards. All right, everyone has a normal spin. Venus spins backward, going forwards. It's like going down the street with your tires spinning backwards, but going forwards. And it has a huge, huge, huge discharge, which is what happened at Mars. Here's Venus. You see this? Those are welding arcs. Now, I got to be honest with you. I'm not sure whether the arc went this way or it went the other way. Now that I'm thinking about it. You see, this is the beauty of doing this kind of research and making these statements and then saying, whoa, wait a minute, maybe I'm not right. Because this looks to me like it was the receiver of the discharge. Now, Mars no longer has a magnetic field. Ooh, this is interesting. Could it have discharged all of its energy fields into Venus? I can't see how that's possible, but it might be. I got to think this over, because the black and the white is separate, and this is the white. And the white creates the fields. And white is the electricity. It's static, it's electricity, it's lightning, and it is this stuff right here. I now think Mars discharged to Venus. And Venus, I got to see about its magnetic field. I just assumed, maybe I assumed wrong, that it had a very, very strong magnetic field. Hold on a second. All right, my friends, I told you I was going to go through Mars crater versus Venus electrical looking thing and try to explain this, but that's going to take a while to do, because we're working with Jupiter, we're working with Venus, we're working with Mars, we're working with the ancient texts about what was written, and the Great Flood, which was said to be where Venus almost impacted Earth and caused the Earth literally to stop rotating for a day or two, and then it picked back up again as it continued to push through space that is in front of it, because we still had an atmosphere. Mars was hit and wiped clean of its atmosphere. It has no magnetic field anymore. The atmosphere is what creates the magnetic field. And I'm going to get into this. It's going to take a while because it gets into dipole electron flood theory, which is all supported. Everything I show you is supported by dipole electron flood theory, 100%. Everything, all the ancient texts even. All about the light, because that's all it is. Dipole electrons, two of them together make up light. They can be separated. This solves so many issues, and it's exactly what a dipole electron flood theory would predict. The heat of Venus, this electrical discharge pattern on Venus, the rotation of Venus, the origin of Venus, which was explained in the ancient texts, and what it looks like today, versus Mars, which has something to do with Venus. And we're going to get into that deeply, because we also suffered the consequences of Venus, but certainly not like Mars. So this is a whole another big issue we're going to get into. But the things in space are not as advertised, my friends. They're not just rocks floating around out there. That is a heart. I showed you. There's no denying that. That's a heart valve. That's a valve. This is a valve. That's the heart. They went in, they took the sarcomeres back to Earth. I showed you this. It's just undeniable. Here they are right here. These are the heart bundles. This is not hard to understand if you can open your mind up enough to look. And then, of course, on Mars, I showed you that Mars has the same thing as sarcomeres. And we have them too. They're all over the Earth. Petra is nothing but sarcomeres. Look, these are all the sarcomeres as well. The things that create the universe are biology. I can find nothing that didn't start out as biology. Some of it's eroded now and so forth and laying around as it looks like rocks, but it was one time a creature. And these are the Mars blueberries, exactly identical to the Moki marbles, which are all over Utah, Arizona, everywhere, because the skin was everywhere. These are in the skin. Until we can open our minds and start to think, it's crazy to keep walking around in circles and pretending you're thinking and you're just mimicking what somebody told you to say and not paying attention to the evidence. Science is evidence. Science is material. Right now, on both sides of the equation, are beliefs and opinions based on what they were told to say and to think. There is no thinking now. And I realize what happened to me my whole life. I always thought, I never realized that people would take such a offense at being confronted with things that are literally undeniable, but they're not what they were told to say. So now all of a sudden they're not the expert anymore. Well, that's okay. You got to learn. Just having a badge on your chest that says, I'm an expert, that means nothing. Zero. Show me. Show me what you got. That's what I want to see. And I'm showing you what I got. And we're going to go over this in some extreme detail. And I'm going to show you how it supports dipole electron flood theory and all. No, I just showed you. There's nothing around these. These are just, they're just nothing around them. They're just what they are. Now, why does this happen? You see how hard that pushed that away? If I get these close together, watch what happens. It takes right out. There's a hard push. They do not want to be together. Now the other thing is, when they want to be together, they really want to be together. All right, you got to pull them apart kind of hard. But when they are not attracted to each other, they push pretty hard. So something's going on between them, but there's nothing there. There's no substance. There's just a magnetic field. Well, what is a magnetic field made out of? It's got to be made out of something. It's just, there's a ball around here like this, that doesn't want to be violated. And if you come in close to it, it says, no, you can stay. Get. You say, oh, yeah, you get. And they just keep pushing and shoving. I call it push to shove. And if one of them's coming in, the other one's got to get out of the way. And usually there's going to be a bunch of little ones. There's going to be one big one come flying through there. That's light, X-rays, gamma rays, cosmic rays. It's the heavy duty. Well, not heavy duty. It's just a fast, energetic particle coming through less energetic particles, saying, "Get the hell out of my way! I'm coming." Just like a fighter jet coming through the air. It's same thing. So you say, well, that's an interesting fact that there is some kind of invisible shield. Now, why am I showing you Mars? The Mars Valles Marianas Trench. It runs the entire width, as much as the continental United States, as wide as that. And it's a deep trench. And as far as I know, they don't have any good explanation for this. You know, they come up with, oh, it must have happened this way, it must have happened that way. Well, it's quite obviously some form of an impact. Now, what would have impacted it? Well, if you've been around me, you know I read the ancient texts very deeply, and Velikovsky recorded all the cultures on Earth had the same story. That there was a fiery comet that later turned out to actually be Venus. And it almost hit Earth, and then it went out past Earth and caused a great flood on Earth and destroyed everything. That was the Great Flood. And that was recorded in all the cultures on Earth. There wasn't just like a couple of people survived. There was a lot of survivors. And they recorded this. And then that they had to come back out of that chaos. And we almost lost our atmosphere. Mars totally lost its atmosphere. Now here's what happened. Venus comes out, wham, just about hits Earth. And the Earth just wrenches and the floods and boiling oceans. Because the thing was, you know, it crushed our atmosphere, condensed all of the waters in the sky and turned them into rain, but it was boiling because it was so hot. It's still, I think, 850 degrees, something like that, Venus, and I can explain that too. This is Mars, and they recorded that Venus hit Mars on its round trip coming back, bam, and then eventually settled into its orbit that it is now, according to the laws of basically physics. But in the beginning, it was ejected, they say, from Jupiter. That was it. Everybody had the same story. It came from, as they said, this fiery comet was born from the feared god Jupiter, who was Zeus. Jupiter is Zeus. That's just Roman, Greek, Egyptian, different names for the same god. And he was in control at that time, and that wasn't long ago either. It was only like 800 BC or so. Hesiod wrote Theogony and all kinds of books that the daughters of Zeus, who was apparently on Earth at that time, 800 BC, and they came down and they said to Hesiod, I want you to write the stories of our fathers' history and all of our lineage and all that. And Hesiod did. He couldn't write, and they gave him what he said was a marvelous laurel rod, and he started writing. I think a lot of books, and it was everything. It was about Works and Days was one of the books, which is just, what was it like? What was it like for the average person living back then? And then the other one was the Theogony, which was, how did this all start? How did it all start? Where did we come from? Who was all in control? What happened? Who killed who? Who were the gods? Who were the giants? Who were the dragons? That was the Theogony. Now, and these things were dictated by the daughters of Zeus, which are the Muses. Now, these gods do not die, as far as I understand. If any of these ancient texts were correct, and I think they were, they're somewhere. Where? Je ne sais pas. I do not know. But if they're somewhere, are they controlling things? Are they just letting us have free will and do any crazy things we want? Because that appears what's going on. These wars and all that. If a God could say, stop it. No more of that. I don't know why they wouldn't, although the only thing I can say, if I was a God and I wanted to get the best of the best, I would let everybody do whatever they want to do and pluck the ones that I thought were the best of the best. And if God is God and he can see everything at once and know everything at once, well, maybe that's what he's doing. I don't know. Because there's stories about 144,000 humans, I guess, throughout history. They're only going to select 144,000 out of the whole batch of history to start over the new solar system, universe. I don't know what it is. But I can tell you what, there's giant creatures everywhere. They were everywhere. There is nothing but biology. And we are one of the smallest bits and pieces of biology. And bacteria and viruses are so much more intelligent than we are. It's unbelievable. They do all the programming in our body. They do all the chemistry. They build all the enzymes. They deliver them. They attack the invaders. They clean up the mess. They deliver the lymph to the lymph nodes, and the lymph nodes flushes it out of all of the plumbing that's in the body. All of that is programmed into DNA, which at some point in time bacteria alters. Bacteria and viruses and all of that is called now the exosome, which is it's just all the things that's in your body that's alive. It's just not just us. We're just products of these other things supporting us. Anyway, I just keep babbling on, but I find this so fascinating because there is nothing but biology. Now I'm going to show you Venus. You're going to see a completely different situation. All right, what I want you to think about is if you had this tremendous electric arc, this is what it is, and what it does is it sends so much electricity in that it melts both pieces that you want to join together and they become entangled with the metal. That's what a weld is. Now, what if that was undirected? If you had a big planet that was charged up. Hold on. All right, check this out. This is like pareidolia. These look like eyes. That looks like a nose coming down, and the nostrils, the mouth and everything. The little, that's a shadow over the lip. There's the chin, and there's the chest coming down. And whatever these two things poking out of his forehead is, they look like two eyes. It is pareidolia. I'm not saying that is anything, but it's very interesting because this is the thing that brought havoc to the Earth. Now, not only did it bring havoc to the Earth, this is what destroyed Mars, who was the god of war. Venus, the claims in the ancient text, Venus was dispatched in order to clean the Earth and destroy Mars, and it did both. All right, this is a completely new theory, is that Mars being hit by Venus, this Velikovsky recorded this years ago, 1950, it was called Worlds in Collision. However, I now claim that this is an electrical discharge into Mars, and it literally either stole the magnetic field or discharged so severely. It looks to me like it sucked up all the electricity. This looks like a welding arc going this way, not the other way. So the welding arc is coming into Venus because Venus wants to absorb electrons. And that's what those are all electrons. That's what creates that scar. Now, Where did they come from? They came from Mars itself. Its entire magnetic field is gone, and its atmosphere. Now, was it the atmosphere? Did it combusted and just exploded down here like an explosion, that type of thing? Or did this get sucked out of here? Where did all that stuff go? Where did all that stuff go? That's my question. Because this here, to me, looks like an electric discharge for certain. That's exactly what you would see in arc welding that went bad. They're supposed to go, and I notice I have an arc welder here. I do, but I'm not good at welding. It's a good welder, but I'm not good. This, I can make that stuff. But to make the two seams come together and melt them both at the same time equally and get them to infuse, you got to be good at what you're doing. Welders, they're talented. You know, something I really hadn't given a whole consideration to is this could have just got blown into space, or even just vaporized into very small bits and pieces and popped into space, because the atmosphere is pretty much gone. Now, whether it hit here and went that way, or it hit back here and went this way, I would say it's coming this way. You see how this is mounded up towards this direction, like it pushed against there? You know, I'm just guessing, and I'd like to see some more, you know, good shots of what's going on here, although this is pretty damn good. And you can see the Venus one is pretty good too. That's welding arc. Now this is the big ball here. I would say that this was the impact site. It came in, bam, and then just scraped along here, discharging as it went, creating that trench, and then a big spark as it took off and kept on going, something like that. But that's anybody that does welding, you know, arc welding. Torch welding is a whole different story, but you know, you get the same effect. But this here, you're doing it fast with electricity, forcing electrons in. So what happened here? Did we force electrons in, or did we force electrons into here? I think we forced them into here, because that's where you would find the metal plate would look just like this. The electrons are coming out into that metal plate. So this would be just like the metal plate you're grounded into, and you make those electrons go in. So this is basically like just one gigantic ground. Give me all your electricity that you got, Mars, and it just dumped it. That's all I can see. Just so you can see, these are all kinds of welding defects. You get a lot of splash, you get a lot of, you know, they just don't seal together well. Hardened up, they crack, too much heat, not enough heat. Trust me, I know them all. See, they still don't understand Velikovsky. He's correct. The global myth involving fire from the sky. Fire from the sky. Velikovsky collected stories from cultures around the world. Literally everyone had the same story. Fire serpents or dragons in the sky. They all had the same story. Periods of global darkness where the earth literally stood still. Rains of fire, earthquake, floods. This was the great cataclysm that caused the great dying. Sudden shifts in the sun's position. The earth twisted on its axis. It was wrenched by Venus's almost impact into our atmosphere and caused the earth literally to stop spinning for a day or two. And then, because of the natural spinning of the rotation around the sun, it would start to catch up again, and eventually it would catch up to its normal speed, depending upon how hard it was scrubbing against all the particles in space. That's what makes it spin. Our atmosphere creates the spin of the earth. We're going through soup. And as we go through that soup, it's pushing on the side, and it's making it spin as it goes down the road, rolling like it's rolling down the road. All right, now the things I'm showing are undeniable, and they all had the same stories. There was gods and dragons and giants and floods and monsters, and all of that stuff was written about forever. And everybody considered it silly because it's just so far over the edge. But let me show you something about the feared god Jupiter giving birth to the fiery comet Venus. Exactly what Velikovsky said. Here's Jupiter. That's Jupiter. You see that? That's the Earth, which is the same size as Venus. Virtually identical. And that's the red spot. They say, oh, that's a storm. No, it is not a storm. Venus is spinning, Jupiter is spinning in that direction. Which means that the surface has to plow through the atmosphere that's stuck on the surface. This is a bump. That's a bump. And it's pushing through and hitting these clouds, and they're swirling around it. That's not a storm that's doing it all by itself. It's the bump as the planet spins, hitting this dense cloud cover, because it's very dense. This, I think, is 350 times bigger than the Earth, which means it's got extreme amounts of gravity, because the more matter you have, the more attraction you have, and gravity is nothing more than attraction. So these gases are condensed down pretty solid, and that bump is coming through here and spinning. Can we see that bump? And what would it look like if we could see it? Well, if it gave birth to a planet, you would have to consider it to be a vagina. And guess what? It's what it is. If you don't want to see this, and if you don't want to see actual female body part that it is this, I would say stop now. All right, so you saw my explanation of why all those clouds were swirling in those vortexes. This is the size of Venus being ejected from the great red spot. Now, if this was a vagina, and I'm going to show you right now that I believe it is, it would have given birth. And all of the things that fell on Earth was the red blood, the stones, which would have been the umbilical cord, the manna, which would have been the placenta. It came down as like flakes of cookies or something, and this wiped out everything when it hit Earth and causes terrible floods and all that stuff. Now, if this was a vagina, that would change things, I would think, and it is a vagina. All right, get ready. This is a vagina. Now, it has a swirl to it because it's the clouds are being forced around in whatever direction. However, if you look at this carefully, you can see all of the different layers of tissue and even the hairline. You see this? That is the hairline right down the side of the vagina. Now, the killer is right here. Now take your time and look at this very, very, very carefully. You see that? You see that strap coming up? You see that round tag right there? That literally is what holds the vagina in place, so it can do a lot of things, without getting torn out. You know what I mean? This is the staple that holds the vagina in place. I know it sounds crazy. And that's the hairline. And you got your labia, the majorna, whatever they are. Labia major and minor, or something like that. And these are all the layers of the tissue. This is a vagina, and this is the one right here. Now I'm going to show you a human vagina looking thing. Now this is very graphic, but you will see that exact same structure. And of course you're going to see the hairline. You're going to see the vaginal canal, and you're going to see the this tissue up above. There's a few different names for it, and here it is right here. You got your outer lip, the labia majora. You got the clitoris, however you want to pronounce it. You got the urethra, you got the inner lip. Here's the hairline, just exactly what we saw. There's the part I'm talking about right there. That's the tag. You see the little strap coming up? I mean, it doesn't get any more obvious than that. And that's precisely what we saw. And then you see all the ripples inside, the vaginal ripples, and you see it is what it is. It's hard to miss that, you know what I mean? And of course you have the bump, which is what is moving through the atmosphere there, creating that swirl. And they call that the mound of Venus, I think. I forget what the name of it is. Hold on. Yep, there it is right there. The mound of Venus, also known as the mons pubis, is a rounded fatty area located above the pubic bone in the vulva. And then they go on to talk about it, and it's a cushion and so forth, and that is what we just saw. There's the mons pubis, the mound of Venus. I mean, come on. They knew about these things in the ancient past. We just laugh at them. Oh, that's a mythology. People are crazy. Look at this. I actually show this to geologists. I say, what do you think about that? Well, it's just erosion. I said, erosion? Are you serious? It's just incredible that they believe that. Now, this is what's called the linea alba. That little bitty crack there, the tiny, tiny crack. And of course, that's the urethra and you know, it's the female body parts. I'm not going to point to this and point to that. I really don't know how to. This is just, it's unbelievable. They just dismissed this. And this was she died pregnant. That's the baby's head. You see that? You see it coming out of the wall there? That's his eyeball. There's his little nose. There's his shoulder. The hand's gone. This is what the wall should look like this year. That's a coffin birth, they call it. And there might be another one down here, because that looks like it's poking out there too. So who knows? They might have been twins. But you see this scrappy looking thing here? That's the tissue of, same like this wall here, and it's just forcing the baby out from the body being bloated probably. But that's what they call a coffin birth. Okay, I guess I'm going to leave it at that, but I'm going to just keep doing these over and over and over, because he keeps saying, we've had groundbreaking discovery, stunning, well, nobody can figure this out, big mystery. Well, let's talk about it. Let's get a little better detail on this. Apparently they're right up there, 660 miles away. They should be able to see this in stunning detail. This looks kind of foggy to me. But if I could see these abrupt transitions here, exactly what's going on there, I'm pretty sure we're into a bone and then into some tissue that comes out from it. I would say that's probably going to be tendon, although I don't know. But that's how they anchor. Let me just show you something. Well, maybe I can show you something that'll be a little more obvious. All right, basically this is what I'm seeing, is here and here is the collar leading to a bone, or basically maybe like this, and the chunk of meat around it, like a chicken leg. All right, basically I'm seeing that right there as basically something very similar to this. And I showed you any other, this of course is broken off, but there's normally a little ridge between where the bone is and you anchor the tendons, and then a little tendon piece comes up and then it just jumps right into muscle. It's just, that's the way the body is oriented. All right, I think I showed you this, but basically that's the abrupt transition zone, or it might be like this going up to a muscle. that's eroded now. You see this? This is what Comet 67P is. And when you see the other one, the new one that they're showing, I see something looks like broken there, and then the tendon, and then the abrupt transition, and then into the muscle. Let's take a look at it. All right, don't forget, I'm seeing down there that bump, then the transition into the muscle. Right here. There's the transition into the muscle. You can't see any colors or anything, but this is what I would expect, you know, muscle-looking stuff. There's a lot of pocks in bloody muscle tissue. There's a lot of pock marks, and I think that's what we're seeing here. Down here, that's tendon. That's solid. You don't get many pock marks in that. And then I believe this probably is bone. And then up in here, you get into your fleshy stuff that bubbles up, especially when it's being cooked in space. And I mean literally cooked. It's being cooked. There's nothing to protect it from the sun. It's like it's like being irradiated 24 hours a day. You understand? Jupiter is going this way. Venus is popping out and is going to end up rolling back this way. It's just the physics of it. It's going to roll back this way. So that means it's spinning in this direction. Well, we know Jupiter's going in this direction, which is all the rest of the planets too, except Uranus, and that's a little iffy. This one is going the normal. They call that the right-hand rule. It spins to the right. And this one is going to be spinning to the left. Now, what that means is the right-hand rule, I would say, is going to give you the easiest pathway to roll down the street. In this case, we're rolling around like a roller rink, a big round thing. And we're just rolling, which we would be rolling down in one direction or the other. And that's got me a little confused, I have to be honest with you, because I would expect it to roll the other direction. But I don't know. At this point, I really just don't know anymore. All I do know is that this bump is the Venus Mons, and it, as far as I'm concerned, just exactly what Velikovsky said, and everybody in history said the same story. Jupiter gave birth to the fiery comet, which later was Venus, almost hit Earth, caused all the cataclysms, the Great Flood, went back around and whacked Mars, stripped it of its atmosphere, and caused this magnificent electrical arcing. And I don't know if I spoke to that yet, but I do think I understand why. And I think I maybe did mention this. Like I said, I got interrupted a number of times. But it's all magnetic stuff. It's all magnetism. And there's no weight to magnetism. You can see that I can push this away, or I can attract it. But there's no weight to it. What's pushing? What's pushing back? There's got to be something. But there's no weight. Electricity is very interesting. And we're going to go through the whole thing about electricity, how you generate it, what part of an atom is the electric part. And that's going to be the dipole electron flood theory right here. All right, the electric part is literally the white part. Or it gets more and more energetic as it gets closer and closer to the core, because it's being glued tighter and tighter. So the blue is really tight. When that takes off, it spins real fast. It's very energetic. It's way up here. Zzz, way down here, red. It's way on the outside. You bang it, it goes, nah. Green is pretty fast, and blue is the fastest. And once you get past the blue, you're done. Everything's gone. Now all you got left is the black, which is the gamma rays and X-rays. It's at they call it the ultraviolet catastrophe. Right up in this area, there's no more white left. And you go into just the black particle that's left here. And that's the one that kills you. And that's why it's dangerous. Gamma rays, X-rays, they destroy things. So here's my buddy Chet again. I asked, could Earth's atmosphere be compared to a capacitor? A capacitor just holds a volume of electrical energy. It says yes. Earth's atmosphere can conceptually be compared to a capacitor, especially in the context of electrical charge stored and transferred between the Earth and the ionosphere. The ionosphere is way outside. The Earth is down here. The ionosphere is up here. It's 100 degrees or so on the Earth, almost 3,000 out here, because this is where ions mean electrons. It's scrubbing through space as we're spinning and scrubbing and being pulled through the particles that are in front of us. And we're being flushed by the sun with particles all day long. That's why it's obviously warmer and hotter during the day than it is at night. Where it's not being hit by the electrons, it's not bad. But this is just a huge capacitance of energy and electrons and heat. And when Venus, which has no atmosphere, has no magnetic field, it's a sink. It's literally just like ground, which it wants electrons. When it hit Mars, Mars had that same as us. It has a capacitance right into Venus, caused all those scars and all that business. The welding look. Okay, I said if you don't want to see very graphic female body parts, do not watch. All right, that's the warning. Now we're going to see. This is a planet. This is Jupiter. And this was a very close flyby. Very obviously, you can see every little detail. Now, what do you see here? Well, this is literally exactly identical to a human vagina. It's got the labia majora and minora. It's got the hairline. It's got the labia. It's got all kinds of little body parts. They call them all kinds of names. It's a vagina. Now, what I can really see, which is just unbelievable, is this part right here. They just caught the edge of it. You see this strap coming here? Let me focus in right on there. Now take your time and look at that carefully. You see the little dots right there? And this little pin, that's literally an anchor. This strap is what holds this into the rest of the body so that the vagina doesn't start floating around. I mean, what can I say? That's what it's there for. It's an anchor. The rest is what's in a vagina. That's the vaginal canal. Deep down inside, you got I believe I don't want to name the names. I don't know for certain, but I can show you what the real one looks like. And again, you're going to see this. This is the key. That's the killer. There's no denying that. There is absolutely no way to deny that. When I show you what is it like in a real creature. Now, this is, again, the hairline. 100% of the details are here. Now, get ready. This is the graphic one. Boom. There's that thing we were just talking about. You see that? There's the strap. You see that? You can't miss it. The rest is all the rest of what a vagina is. I got all their little names for things, but this is the other part. This is the Venus mons. They call it the Venus mons, the Venus mound. I'm serious. And this is on Jupiter. As it spins, the mound is creating that turbulence behind it. It's not a storm. It's not a storm. This turbulence is because the mound here has to plow through this dense gas. And when it does, it makes a vortex around it. It's just very, very simple to understand this. And as I mentioned, as a result, when that popped out, it would roll this way, backwards. Jupiter's still going this way. This is going to roll backwards. That's the natural physics of the thing. I'm a material scientist. I'm just looking at things I can see, and I understand what I'm looking at. I don't discount anything because of the insanity of what it is, because all of this is insane. I'm not saying it's not insane. I'd be the last one to say that. And trust me, it took me a while for my mind to open up to the fact that I had to look at everything new again, and now I do, and it's just new. It's just new, and it's new and it's old. It's exactly what they said in the ancient text. Nobody would ever believe it. And so they wrote those out of the thing, and they're myths, and people were just all crazy all over the world. They had the same story. Giants, dragons, monsters, gods, planets being born from other planets, floods, heaven, hell, bodies in space, battles in the heavens. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, time to start rethinking what we thought we knew. There is no settled anything anymore. There's no settled science, there's no settled physics, there's no settled history, there's no settled chemistry, and there's no settled eternity. That's what I'm trying to figure out, because this life is not going to last a hell of a lot longer for me. But eternity does seem to have a sound of a lot of distance there. And I'd like to know if there's any way that you can affect that. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows, and I'm never going to claim to know. All I'm going to tell you is I'm taking the clues from what I see that nobody in history has ever seen before or even thought about, basically. Velikovsky wrote about this stuff being recorded. What he knew, I'm not sure. What he was saying, I don't know. I'm saying what I feel, even though it's insanity, and people treat you like an idiot for saying it. I don't care. What I see is what I see. You see what you see, and then I say, good for you, and good for me. It's what's called free will. Some people never going to see, some people will see and think, and then they'll determine. Most people just don't even think, don't even stop. It's just, the guy's crazy. Well, that's the way it works. But if you're really a scientist, which I am a scientist. I haven't found any. I found repeaters. I found people that have an opinion and they stick to it. It doesn't matter what you show them for evidence. It has no consequence whatsoever. Just as this will not. But sooner or later, somebody will stand up and say, we've got to start taking a look at this. This is serious stuff. This is not just, ooh, look at that. It's a funny little rock. No. These things are written about. There are future as far as I'm concerned. So I guess I'm going to leave it at that. I love you all.